folks, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk about this long-term bond ETF TLT because there is a huge sell-off in the bond market right now and the yields for long-term treasuries have been skyrocketing. So here's a long-term chart of the 30-year yield. And you can see over the last couple of years, it's gone up, but especially in the last few months or so, it's gone up a lot. And now it's at a 16-year high. And we haven't seen yields this high since before the financial crisis in 2008. So what is causing the market to sell off these bonds and thereby increasing their yields? A big part of it is the Federal Reserve wants to keep rates higher than expected for a longer period of time, but also the deficit is expected to grow to $2 trillion this year compared to about $1 trillion last year. And when the government borrows more money, it makes it harder for the country to pay back those loans, so the yield goes up to compensate for that risk. And also, when you issue more bonds, but the demand is the same, you have to increase the yield and promise a higher rate of return to get more people interested to buy your bonds. And another reason is that the tax revenue is down from last year by about 10%. And again, this just increases the deficit, meaning the government is spending even more of the money it doesn't have, which will put into question the country's credibility and credit rating. So that is why an ETF like TLT, which basically just buys long-term treasury bonds with durations of 20 years and up, which are very interest rate sensitive. And that's why this ETF has been going down for quite a while. You can see last year it came down, had a little bit of a pop, flat, and now it's going back down again. But because of such a large sell-off, which usually doesn't happen in the market, this does lend to a potential good opportunity to make some profit from trading this ETF. So the way this iShares 20 plus year treasury bond ETF moves is it goes up when interest rates fall and it goes down when interest rates rise. And because interest rates are expected to be higher for longer, we had this in the recent weeks. So by looking at the weekly chart, and if I zoom out, we can see it's basically forming this cone with a resistance line up here and then a support line down here. And right now, the reason I want to bring up this ETF at this point is because in this past week, there was some pretty aggressive selling. And if I zoom in here, you can see we've pretty much touched this purple line, which has been a nice supporting line since this ETF started about 20 years ago. So I think the way to play this is to wait for a bounce and then try to catch the move upwards, as I think that is safer to do than to try to short this. Because if TLT does something like this and it goes down even below this purple line, then interest rates must go so high that the economy might be flirting with hyperinflation, which I don't think is going to be the case. So I think there is a higher possibility that it's going to move upwards from here. Now, the exact path is unsure because this could be the bottom right here, as it is touching a line that has been support for a very long time. So if this is the bottom, then we could see something like that, especially in the next couple of years, 2024, 25, when the Fed is expected to cut rates to help the economy, which will probably be in a recession sometime before 2025. Or it could drop through this purple line first, come back to retest it, and do something like that. Which is why I think one way to potentially play this is to have a longer term time horizon. Even if you're trading, I would say like half a year to 1 year out instead of like a weekly or monthly trade. And if you're using options like I plan to do, then you can just set a longer expiration date or maybe use leaps or something. And one thing that's going to help me in deciding when to go in on this ETF is some momentum indicators. I have the MACD here. And right now you can see it is kind of bearish because at least on the weekly chart, it is negative below the zero line, and also it is on its way down. There is also the RSI down here, and this one is bearish as well. It's actually in the extreme zone down here at 21.66. So before I'm long this ETF, I want to see both the MACD and the RSI head upwards. And if it is the case that this is the bottom and TLT starts to go up from here, then it would make sense that the MACD and RSI would also change directions. And we could have a divergence over here because the MACD, when we measure from this low point to this low point, assuming the ETF will go up from here, the MACD could go from a lower low to a higher low. Meanwhile, you can see the ETF went from a higher low to a lower low. So because of that negative divergence, that would be pretty bullish for this ETF. If I drop down to the daily chart, there's a bit more noise, but over the next coming weeks or months, by looking at this, I'll have a pretty good idea of this purple line here. Will it bounce off the support or will it fall through it? So if it falls through, I'm going to wait until it comes back up again, maybe like this, until it goes over, and then maybe I will go long over here. But if it just bounces off and goes up, then I will be long as soon as on the weekly chart I see the MACD and the RSI both start to go upwards. So let's keep an eye on this, and I'll give you guys another update if I do any trades with it. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching. Good luck with your investments, and I'll talk to you in the next one.